Welcome back to the Convo Couch, everyone. Pasta Jardula here with a special guest. When we started this channel, one of the goals, I should say, was to interview a lot of grassroots candidates. We saw a lot of the mainstream media talking to people out there, but the grassroots candidates within the Democratic Party were not getting covered. So we went on this whole quest, covering a lot of grassroots candidates within the Democratic Party. But as you know, is watching the show, the Democratic Party, we think, is persona non grata, fallen from grace, and there's not much fixing it. So what we did is we went out there and we found you a candidate we can talk that's not a Democrat, but he's running as an independent, and his name is Steve Cox. Mr. Cox, welcome to the show.
Hey, man, how's it going? Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
It's great to have you on. I saw you on a couple other shows, some other colleagues we've had. They really pushed your name out there. And the other day, a friend of mine was telling me in Orange County that he's sick and tired of politics, even locally. He can't stand his congressperson.
Yeah.
So I said, well, it's kind of funny because the guy who's running against your congressman, one of the guys I know, I'm going to have him on the show. And he said, oh, he's running as a Democrat? I said, no. He said, really? I said, yeah. And he's running as an independent. So give us a little bit about who you are, where you're from, who you're running against, what district, the whole 9 yards. I give you the floor, my friend.
All right. Well, let's start at who I am. My name's Steve Cox. I'm just a dude. I'm a dude just like every other dude. Like, it's not there's nothing special about me. There's nothing noteworthy that anybody really needs to worry about as far as, when people talk about people running for Congress, I always feel like there's this air of like, these are special people or whatever. And they're not. They're as dumb as any of us. And, I sat next to the guy who just lost this seat in the 2018 elections. I sat next to him, Gil Cisneros. He was a Democrat. I sat next to him at more than a half a dozen debates, on the stage with him and stuff, forums and whatnot.
Yeah.
And he's the dumbest man I've ever met. Like, he's one of the dumbest people. Like, just
is he the congressperson there now?
No, he got beat. He was in for 2 years, and then he got beat by the same person who got second to him last time. And she is very well connected. Her name's Young Kim. She's a Republican, and she was the one. This used to be a Republican district for like 25 years. I mean, the Cook Report has it as 50-50 as far as liberal conservative, but it's been a Republican district. And the previous guy, Ed Royce, retired prior to the 2018 midterms, and he tried to hand it off to his longtime right-hand person, Young Kim, who's a woman immigrant from, I believe, Korea, like North Korea. I think she fled or something with her family, but she's a very socially conservative person, which is pretty gnarly. When she ran for state senate or state assembly, her primary issue she talked about was about gender bathrooms, and who should be allowed in which bathroom. That was the whole thing she went on. She lost, but she won the seat for Congress. And on her signs, the funny part is, on her signs during the general election, it said independent.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought it would says, we'll make sure you get to the right bathroom, as if we don't have enough problems.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's exactly how I look at it. But it's back in 2017, after Trump won and after Bernie got cheated the first time by the Democratic Party and all that, I was driving to a race in Northern California because I'm a photographer and journalist that covers motorcycle racing, motocross and supercross racing. That's my job. I used to be a racer when I was young, and
motocross.
Yeah, motocross. Yeah. Yeah, it's a gnarly sport. I broke over 25 bones doing that.
Are you an X Games guy?
I've been to the X Games as a photographer, but no, I was never doing tricks on them. It was racing, it was always about racing. But the guys I raced with, people like Larry Linkogel, which is a name some people know, and like that, those are the guys that invented freestyle motocross. Like my generation, my exact, within a couple years of my age, all those guys are within a couple years of my age, and they're the ones that created freestyle motocross.
How old are you, by the way?
I'm 43. I'll be 44 in a month.
Yeah. And you in April?
Yeah.
So you're an Aries.
Yes, sir.
Vote Steve Cox Aries for independent. I'm an Aries too. So
Yeah, my mom's
April
always
14th?
talking about it. Yeah, 18th.
All right, we're right. We're the same stage Aries. So
Yeah.
fire you guys. So
Yeah, oh yeah.
maybe you get into Congress, you show that Aries fire and whatnot. Did you grow up in the area that you're running?
I grew up my entire life in Chino Hills, which is in the district. Like literally from when I was 3 months old, and I was born in the district in Fullerton. Like I was born in the hospital in Fullerton. So yeah, it's my home. It's always been my home. And that's part of what motivated me. But on the way up to this race, in 2017, I just was like wondering, because I'm driving and it's like Sacramento, so it's like a 5-hour drive how I drive, and I'm like cruising, and I was just like, man, how old am I going to be when somebody comes along, before somebody comes along like politically, that I can really get behind, that I can like really feel good about supporting, and like know that they understand me, know that they're being honest with me. Just a lot of things that I think need to get check boxes off for candidates, and all those things I've been very aware about and trying to look for a long time. And at that time, I had just turned 40 years old. And I was like, that's a milestone. You hit 40. And I was like, well, how old am I going to be when this person comes along? Am I going to be 50? Am I going to be 60? What if I'm 70 and this person never shows up? Like, how am I going to feel about that? Because I had a lot of very specific ideas, I still do, about what needs to be done to fix our government and fix our system, really. And I need somebody to come along that's going to support those things, right? And a lot of hard thought. And then finally, I just decided I should be that candidate that I want to support. That's my job as a member of a society, of any community. If you feel like you have the answers to some questions and things that need to get fixed, it's your duty to bring them up and try to make them a reality. Like that's your job. It's not really a choice, really, when you think about it. And so that's kind of how I convinced myself to do it. And then I at that race, I told everybody, because the whole industry knows me and stuff, and so I just told everybody who would listen that I was running for Congress. And I did that because I was afraid I would chicken out. And so I hung myself. I told everybody that I was doing it so that if I did chicken out, I would look like a coward. And so and then from then I've been doing it, and I've been trying to learn how it works. It's a pain in the ass. And then December, actually on Christmas Day 2019, Christmas Day 2019, my wife gave birth to our daughter Daphne, who,
oh, congratulations.
My wife was 40 years old at the time, and I was 43, and I'm like, or 42, coming up on 43, and I'm like, okay, I guess we had figured that we weren't going to be parents, because we had tried for a really long time and it just never really worked out. And so we kind of had started to build a life as just a pair of people, because I love her, and I wasn't married to her to, trying to get her to give me a child. It was just a matter of, love. Right. And so we had sort of set up this life. And then all of a sudden she gets pregnant, and then all of a sudden it makes it into the second trimester, which she hadn't been able to do. She had something like 7 or 8 miscarriages up to that point, all late in the first trimester. And those are rough, man. And at one point she asked me, she's like, well, should we keep trying? And I'm like, I'm not an idiot. I'm not making that call.
Yeah.
Like, what? So if I say, yes, we keep trying, then the next heartbreaking loss that we have, late in the first trimester, is my fault, right? Can be put on me. And then if I say, no, we shouldn't keep trying, and then we don't have kids, and then that's now on my shoulders. I'm like, that's not my call. Like, you tell me what you want to do. Like, this is, I'm it's good funny. Either way.
Chris Rock, we were talking about comedians. He says there's some questions a woman asks, you can always say, well, what you want to do?
Yep.
That's the only answer.
Yep.
You got that. And I love seeing a guy your age. I'm 47. I'm gonna be 48 a couple days before you turn 43.
Yeah.
But I love seeing
44,
guys
yeah.
who have babies at a young age, because I love to go look at them and go, should have had babies about 15 years earlier, huh? And so, you know,
it's so gnarly.
What, 14 months?
14 months old. She's brilliant and I love her, and she's changed my life in so many ways, you know, how I look at the world. But it's still, you know, I'm 43 years old. I'm almost 44 years old. And when you're dealing with a toddler who's like, you know, got an engine that just keeps going, and, you know, it's not easy. It's not as easy as it would have been, I think, if I was 10 years younger or whatever, but you know, it's just what it is. Right. So I'm going to be 60 when she graduates high school. And, you know, I guess that's just how it's going to be. You know, it's
it's awesome.
Right? So, yeah, no, it's fantastic. But you know, we had.
I just want to say that's great, by the way, Steven. I don't mean to interrupt you, but that's
no worries.
I mean, that's awesome that you're a dad to a toddler at 43 years old. You were into motocross. You're homegrown. You just said, F it, like let's do this one day, because you realized if not you, who? If not now, when? Right? That's that whole cheer out there.
Yeah, that's right. And that's really what it comes down to. And you know, I've been bothering. There's a few people on Twitter. One of them's Feline, and I hope you're watching this, because you got to step up. But I've been trying to get these people to run for office as independents. I'm trying to recruit more people as we speak, because I think it's important to do it as an independent. I think specifically doing it as an independent is probably the most important part. Outside of all the policy stuff or anything else, I think it's the most important part is to do it as an independent. And I've been bothering people, and then they're like, oh, it's a lot of work. I'm like, yeah, it is. It's a lot of work. It's a total pain in the ass.
Oh yeah.
You got to knock on doors. You're going to hate doing that all the time. Knocking on people's doors, strangers, and just be like, hey, you know, I'm a politician. You like politicians, right? Because nobody fucking likes politicians. Right. So it's rough. It's not easy, but you know, I just said this to her the other night on Twitter. I just said, it's terrifying, actually. Yeah. Do it anyway. Yeah. You know, like, because that is really what it takes. It takes people who are willing to step up. And that doesn't mean everybody's got to be a candidate. There's, you know, some people who like, the most common thing I hear is that, oh, I've got stuff in my past or my background that they would find and dig up on me and it would be over or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, that's legit. They probably would. So, you know, if you have a clean situation like that, if you're good with talking in front of large groups of people, if you're good with your words generally, if you know, there's a lot of things that if you have, say, most of those things, you can run for office. But not everybody has most of those things, you know? So the other people, like, they still need to do something. They still need to volunteer for campaigns. Absolutely. They need to get in the street. They need to get in the street and protest, you know, and make their voice heard outside of the electoral system as well. I think is very important.
Well, the whole thing is I think more than anything, the most important thing that we could do, and that's why I didn't want Biden to win this last election, was to break the two-party duopoly.
I know.
You know, I wanted the Democrats to fall on their face so bad because, first of all, I don't even believe they had fair wins in their primaries and whatnot. We talked about Bernie getting cheated this time.
Yeah.
And I'm an election integrity specialist, so I understand how the framework and the system works. And we have a black box voting system, which means it's not transparent, it's not verifiable.
Yep.
So for me, the worst thing could be for the Democratic establishment to win, because now they would be justified in their lack of actions, and running as an independent, I think, is the most important thing. So
it really
is the first one on the docket, by the way, of our new let's get going this year. Instead of starting off with like looking at the grassroots Democrats, we're saying no moss with that. Let's look elsewhere to the independents.
Yeah, and I really appreciated that. But there's a reason why. There's a lot of reasons why.
Tell us why.
Why it's important to be an independent. The number one thing is, and I have proven this to myself as a candidate and going around, is that when you knock on doors and you meet voters face to face, again, it's not everybody's bag, right? Like, that's not something everybody wants to do or can do. I hate it, but I do it. But like knocking on doors, this is how it goes. almost 100% of the time. It goes like this. I go, knock, knock, knock. My name's Steve Cox. I'm running for Congress here. And they fold their arms like immediately. Their body language is like, you know,
Republican or Democrat?
That's exactly right. They say
Republican or Democrat? Hurry up. I need to shut the door.
Right. They say which party? And I say I'm an independent. And almost 100% of the time, they immediately unfold their arms, no matter what their political thing is. They immediately unfold their arms and go, oh, well, tell me about some of the things that you're trying to do. Like, it's incredible because, you know, I've never had the money in my campaign to be able to do the things that most campaigns do, which is like, there's a service called PDI that allows you to narrow searches or addresses and all this stuff inside your district. Costs like $7,000 or something like that.
Yep.
But it's like inside your district, and so you can target certain houses. So most people knock on doors that they know the person on the other side of the door is going to be, you know, at least nice to them, and, you know, on the same side or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
And when I did it, it's always blind. It's just not knocking on a random door. I'm like, this looks like there's people home because there's cars in the driveway. So I'm going to knock on the door.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's all it is. I have no idea who, I don't know what's going to happen. And I still, almost 100% of the time, the people completely engage. And out of thousands of houses, probably 24 times that didn't happen, where the person still was offended and shut the door in my face, even though I was an independent, and they were all Democrats.
Oh, hey, Steve, you know.
They're all Democrats.
Cancel culture. Won't stop. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Well, hey, you know what? Let's try something out.
That's the first reason. Let me give you one more reason.
Go ahead, one more reason. I want to do a little role playing after. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's fine. The other reason is because those two parties are paid by the same people.
Of course.
The same industries pay both those parties. So, you know, it all not only is it good from a voter perspective because it engages voters, it causes them to think. They can't make presumptions about what you stand for. They have to ask, they have to engage. So that's good for the electorate. It's good for the people that are making the votes, that are casting the votes. But on the other end of that, you have to give a result. You have to be willing, like you're talking about with Biden, you have to be willing to give both parties, a result that doesn't make either of them happy, where their investors, which is what they are, the big pharma and insurance companies and defense contractors and all this stuff, those people need to lose the seat. And in order for those people to lose that seat, you have to beat both parties, because even if you're a supposedly grassroots candidate on the Democratic side or whatever, your party takes money from those companies. So all the support you get behind the scenes and the voter lists and all the other stuff that costs a bunch of money and needs some expertise, the party provides that, right? And the party provides it using the money from the people that you say that you're going to go and fight against when you go to Congress. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. And we keep seeing it. We keep seeing it happen. Like, you know, I was so hopeful about AOC, for example, and she folded up in 2 years. It took her 2 years. And now she's an establishment person who tweets about the things that she should be actually trying to make happen. Absolutely. You know, and so it's important to do it as an independent. And the other thing is not as third party, because the other problem is a lot of people are like, well, third party, we need a third party. And I'm like, no, we don't. We really don't. And every time you knock on one of those doors, anytime you talk to anybody, or even if they just see your name on a ballot, if it says Green Party next to your name, or if it says Libertarian Party or whatever next to your name, there's still going to be some sort of preconception about what it is you stand for, what kind of person you are, what kind of candidate you are. Independents have none of those problems. And for the first time in a poll I just saw, I'm trying to remember the service. It's not Pew Research, it's the other big one that does polling. They showed that for the first time so far since they started doing this poll, which has been like 30 years or something, independents, Americans, voters are now 50% of them are independent. 50% of them consider themselves to be independent. Yeah. So that is a majority now. It's not just a plurality. It's been a plurality for a long time, but it's actually a majority. So if we can get the goddamn people to stop voting for both those parties, even when they're not at one of those two people, we can actually win. We can actually start turning these seats over. And when we start turning these seats over, we actually start getting people to really start to change their behavior. I think you get a half a dozen to say 3 dozen, somewhere in there, independents that win and get into Congress. And all of a sudden they're going to see the momentum the parties are, and somebody's going to have to blink first. Okay. And change their behavior. And that's what I think needs to happen. It's not about me winning. All right. It's about independents winning.
I think you pointed out 2 things, right? The PDI, you don't have to spend $7,000 on an independent because you don't have to knock on just the Democrats' door or the Republicans.
Yeah.
Either party. Also, when people hear you're an independent, they don't have a preconceived opinion about you, right? Because now you're an independent, they're open to everything. Those seem like positives. What are the hurdles, the biggest hurdles that you are facing as an independent? Because a lot of times independents don't get on the debate stage. They don't get any coverage on the news. What are your biggest hurdles aside from those things? And if you've had problems for the 2 I just talked about, please let us know.
No, I've made the news.
But for what?
for saying that after Trump got COVID, I made a Tucker Carlson show because I tweeted that I hope that while they were at the debate, like a few days earlier, it was Trump and Biden. And so I just tweeted that I hope Trump gave Biden COVID too. And that wouldn't it be a plot twist? Or I said, wouldn't it be something if COVID, who we thought was such an enemy, ends up saving the planet because it kills off both these guys? And it was like a Tracy Morgan gif of him going like plot twist. And it was pretty funny, but I made the news over that.
But I mean, you made the news over that, but we don't see Stephen Cox running in Fullerton, Chino Hills for Congress, independent. Let's talk to him. We don't get that.
No.
So tell me about some of the hurdles other than that.
Yeah. So there's a bunch of hurdles, but I got almost 8,300 votes, is 4.8% of the vote in the primary a year ago, basically. And that was, I spent $500 in promotion, $500. I had to spend more than that because of, the government fees and stuff like ballot access fees and this sort of stuff. But as in terms of actual promotion and everything else, I spent $500 and I got almost 5% of the vote. To put that in perspective, Cenk Uygur, who ran for office at the same time, like a district or 2 over from me, but like, easy driving distance from my house. He spent $500,000 and he got 1,000 more votes than I got. 1,000 more.
Yeah. And he's been on TV for a while or the internet.
And literally 1,000 times the money I spent.
Yeah.
And the 2 people that beat me spent more than 1,000 times. It was Gil Cisneros, who's a lottery winner, dummy Democrat, who was the guy in the seat, and then Young Kim, and they both spent $600,000 just in the primary. And so, I got something like 6 cents per vote is about what I paid.
That's
and
awesome.
They paid like $7 a vote, something like that, because they got 10 times the votes I did, but they spent, over 1,000 times the money to do it. So, I don't need, where I'm going with this is that one of the hurdles is money. I need to raise money, but I don't need to raise as much money. I don't believe I need to raise as much money as most of these other people do in order to do what I need to get done. I think that like the 6 cents per vote thing's not going to carry all the way through. Like I can't just do this for like 30 grand and dominate or whatever. I don't think that it's scalable at 6 cents per vote, but I definitely think I could stay under $1 a vote. I definitely think I could do that. And so I'm looking at, an ideal circumstance would be that I could raise $150,000 for this primary run in total. And that would allow me to get access to PDI, which is that $7,000 thing. But, and I need to raise that pretty much before I can really start fundraising a lot, because I need to be able to get the phone numbers and all the other stuff that they have. But I need to do, I need to raise money. And And then that $150,000 would also get me an office for like the last 6 months of the campaign, where we can have call centers and things like that. It'd get me hire a PR firm to try and get me into newspapers, local newspapers, and other sort of media opportunities, and things like that. So there's a lot, and you know, obviously a campaign manager, and you know, and
Did you have a
staff.
campaign manager last time?
No, I mean, I've had so many people try to help, and every single time they try to change me. Like after they get in, they want to make me a Democrat, or they want to, like, you know, and I'm just like, no, this is the thing. This is the guy, right? This is the person. This is what you get. Like, this is a straight up honest run. If people don't want me, if they decide that he's the wrong guy and we don't believe in him and they don't want me, then that's their choice, and they're allowed to make that choice. I'm not trying to manipulate anybody or make people think I'm something I'm not. You know, I'm just what I am. I'm just a normal dude, you know,
So the biggest hurdle you would say is money, as always, right? I mean, because you need some money to make things happen.
It's the
Obviously,
one,
you could do it cheaper, but you still need some scuttle.
that's right. And it's the one thing that I've never had as a candidate. And that's what's frustrating, is that it's the hardest part. And it's frustrating to be in that position, because I really, really, really believe, and it's, you know, and I can't prove it because I've never had the money, but I really believe that that our nation and my district, especially because that's where we're starting it out, is ready for this. It's ready and wanting a real independent to come along, an honest person who's not really the nicest guy in the world, but who has principles and stands by them, and whom you can trust to do what they say they're going to do. You know, I think that that's a huge thing. And our politicians, even if they win, they don't do what they said they were going to do anyway. So what the fuck's the point? You know, people talk about wasting your vote. That's the other big hurdle for third party or independent candidates.
I hate that.
People say that, well, you'll waste your vote. It's like, you waste your vote every goddamn time that you elect one of these people that doesn't do what they say they're going to do. Every single time. Like, that they talk about Trump and other sort of things as being a threat to democracy. Democracy has been dead ever since we've had no recourse against this sort of behavior. You know, we had Barack Obama, who I gave $500 to in 2008. He ran on increasing protections for federal whistleblowers. It was on his website. It was a big reason why I gave him that money. That and fixing healthcare were the main two, and getting us out of the wars. Those are big three promises that that he made. I gave him $500, and by the end of his first term, I didn't even vote for president. I just didn't vote. I was like, I can't, like, what am I picking between Romney and Obama? Romney care was Obamacare. And I'm like, so what am I doing? Choosing colors? I don't give a shit. I don't care what color the guy is, but they're the same. Like, this is the same person, you know? And so, you know, I just got super frustrated, but, you know, at the end of Obama's term, instead of fixing healthcare, he gave us this piece of shit we have now. And then instead of getting us out of the wars, he expanded from 2 theaters of war to 7, many of which he did illegally, unconstitutionally, by unilaterally invading countries without congressional approval, like Syria and Libya.
And Honduras.
Yeah. And so, you know, I'm just looking at that and I'm like, you know, and then increasing protections for federal whistleblowers at the end of his second term, actually not even halfway through his second term, he had put more whistleblowers in jail under the Espionage Act than all previous presidents combined.
Yep.
So what the fuck? Like, how do we spend all this money and we get all this hope and we give this money to these people, and then they go and they do completely the opposite of what they say they're going to do? Like, how is that a thing? He was gonna decrease the militarization of police, Barack Obama. In his very first budget, as part of his boost after the 2008 financial crash, he quintupled the budget for militarizing the police, for like the equipment they could get. He quintupled it.
Yeah. All the equipment out of Iraq went into our police departments across America.
So what are we doing? You know, and so that's really, to me, you know, it's frustrating that you know, wasted vote thing. Like, if we don't get off our collective asses and we actually start doing what's right and take ownership of what our government does, of what the behavior of our government around the world is our fault. It's our fault. We're the ones paying the taxes that fund the goddamn military. We're the ones that vote and participate in this rigged sham system that allows this to continue.
Yeah.
And if we're not willing to step up and actually do the right thing and actually repair our goddamn country, then it's, you know, who cares? Like, I don't really care. Like I've had people online who are like, you know, we got to preserve the democracy. We got to preserve the country. I'm like, why? Like,
yeah,
why?
know, right?
This
What's
country,
there to preserve at this moment?
That's what I'm saying. Like, what are we trying to hold on to?
What do we hold it on to?
Yeah. The flag the thing, because we can just keep the flag and start a new country, but we can just adopt the flag if you want, like if that's the big thing. But like, what are we doing? Because we have a country that allows 68,000 Americans to die every single year for lack of affordable health insurance, and that's before the pandemic. That's 68,000 Americans. That's 165 Americans every single goddamn day who die over greed, essentially. Yeah. And our leaders just go like, oh, well, that's how it goes.
Yeah. Double that number. And you have the number of opioid deaths every year, right, as well, which again is greed from big pharma and whatnot. Of course. We have these wars sometimes in Afghanistan.
Of course.
Get those opioids and poison our people at home. So
of course. So like, you know, ultimately, and this is the hard part about my campaign, the hardest part is that I'm trying to tell the voters this is their fault. I'm trying to go, hey, dummy, stop it. Stop voting for these assholes. They don't care about you. They don't care about our community. They don't care about you, your family, your schools. They don't give a shit. They don't care because they're not paid to care for you. They're paid to care for the big money donors, their corporate interests that they get backing them for everything. You know,
George Carlin told them that, right? The same thing.
Oh, Jesus
said, they don't give a fuck about you.
George Carlin is my number one top level philosopher. I quote him constantly. He's always in my head. I feel like he's actually my inner voice, like my monologue, my inner monologue.
I feel a little George Carlin through your tweets. You're sarcastic.
I can't help it. I can't help it. He's inside me. He's like he's just a part of who I am, I think, at this point.
Well, let me ask you a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So as an independent, what's your number one issue? People say, I want to know the real Steve Cox. What's your number one issue?
My favorite one, it's not necessarily most important one, but it's my favorite one, is that I'm going to introduce legislation to base congressional and Senate pay on the median in the district or the state they represent. The median wage in the state where they live, if it's a senator, or in the district they represent, if they're a congressperson. So
people like Maxine Waters wouldn't run in her district that's so poor because she couldn't make the money.
That's right. Which, you know what that means?
That means you'd actually have somebody from that district.
Yeah. How about that? Right? How about that? Somebody.
Hey, look at that.
Hey. Somebody who actually cares about the community and who's okay making the median, because the median is halfway. They're probably somewhere in that ballpark anyway, right?
Yeah.
And what's Congress work, like 20 weeks a year? Like, you know, come on, like it's still generous to get the median and only work 20 weeks a goddamn year, as far as I'm concerned. So I'm going to introduce that legislation, but it's not. Oh, and you know, one other piece of that is that obviously that means that the Congress people can no longer vote themselves raises anymore, and they would only ever get a raise if their district starts doing better.
That's awesome.
Which is,
that's a great idea. I've never heard that before.
Yeah, that's mine.
Outside the box. That's really awesome.
Yeah,
Steve.
I think it's a big deal. But here's the thing, and this is the kicker to this. There's no way it's going to pass, right? Like, there's no way. I'm going to introduce the legislation. It may not even get a vote, but if it does get a vote, it's going to get hammered. And I expect that. And I'm not a hypocrite. And I'm not one of these people who sits around and says, like, I'm going to make this promise that I'm going to introduce this legislation, knowing it's going to fail. And then I'm still going to get my $174,000 a year and my health insurance through the government and all this other stuff. And it's going to be hunky dory. So I can't live with myself like that, because I have to look at myself in the mirror every day. So I'm going to be donating my own pay above the median household wage in the district, which is about 80,000, or at least it was before COVID, which means that even at current salary with no committee assignments or anything else, I'll be donating $94,000 a year out of my congressional pay to teachers in the district to reimburse them for supplies they have to pay for out of their own pocket.
This is some great idea. I'm glad we got you on the show to talk about these things, because people always say, well, I'm an election integrity activist, right? So it's so important to me. And one of the reasons why mail-in voting has gotten so popular is because they've broken the actual at the voting center votes. In other words, you can wait 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 hours sometimes in some cases.
They did it
in
on
the last
purpose.
primary, right?
Yeah.
On purpose. But it was a guy named Clinton Curtis who came up with an idea who said for every hour that a person waits past 1 hour time, in other words, they're going to allot the county 1 hour to get you in and out. But for every hour that you have to wait, that you're in line, that you haven't voted, the county has to pay you $100. That will make sure that the voting is very mellifluous.
Shit would work, wouldn't it, man? You would have
getting in and out
so
of there.
many polls. You'd have so many polling places, and so it'd be so easy. It'd be so easy. But yeah, so I do think it's a good idea what I brought up as far as the median pay and donating my own pay. And currently, if you're in Congress, you have to pay for your own housing in DC. So I already priced all that out as far as like a studio apartment, because I don't need I ain't gonna be entertaining people at home, right, or in my apartment in DC, right?
When the Convo Couch comes to DC, we want.
Yeah, you're gonna have to get
us a loft or something.
You're gonna have to get a hotel. but I want to. So it's like, where was I going with this? Oh, so once I subtract all the living expenses, that 80,000 or so that I would be taking as my salary, plus taking taxes out and all that stuff, it'll end up in the ballpark of half that, about $40,000. So that's below the median in the district as far as median individual wage.
Yeah.
But okay, it's $40,000 to work 20 weeks. Like, it's pretty good still.
You'd be committed to the job. You'd be committed to the reasons that people would see that. That's awesome.
That's right. And I think it's also important that I think people understand, and I hope that they understand about me when they interact with me, is that my principles are everything to me. So, all I want to do is go to Washington and do the job well. I want to go and do the job how I believe it should be done. Standing for the issues that I believe that should be stood for. And my hope is that once we win, I can just do a good job and not have to actively run for re-election. I believe that if you do a good job as a representative, people will know, and then they'll just keep you in office because they like you. They think you're doing a good job. I believe that that's a way to go with it. All this money that gets spent trying to get these people elected every election it's obscene.
Ridiculous.
And philosophically, I think that any dollar that you spend on one of these campaigns that goes above what you'll make at the job, right, for your term, is automatic corruption. Like that, of course you're corrupt. If you have to spend $500,000 for a job that'll pay you $348,000 over 2 years, you're already corrupt. Like that's where it comes from.
Well, let me ask you something right now, because it's a hard time going on with people talking across party lines. We have cancel culture that runs deep. It was like one of the only few things in this last speech that Donald Trump gave at CPAC. Oh, I hate that CPAC speech, man. These are his worst speeches. It's every reason why I don't vote for him and whatnot.
Yeah.
And, don't get me wrong. I can't stand Joe Biden even equally, if not more. But what about cancel culture? What's your idea? What's your thoughts on just kind of addressing cancel culture right now out there, since it's like everybody has a hard time? And I know I've been to your neighborhood. I have friends who live in Fullerton and friends who live in Yorba Linda, and it's kind of mixed. It's Republican and Democrat.
It's about 50-50. The Republicans are pretty hardcore about it.
So how do you feel about cancel culture?
I understand. I believe that in most cases, the thought was good. I think the intent was good when it started, but it's not good. Like the way that this is going and the way it works, and I want to be careful here, because I don't want to sound like a whiny little bitch. I don't want to be like, oh, woe is me, whatever, because I'm fine. Okay, so I'm going to say that ahead of time. I'm fine. There's nothing. I'm not upset. I have a wonderful home life with my little girl and my wife and my dogs, and You know, my life in general is very blessed. I feel very lucky, despite my lack of wealth or whatever other you know, ways people judge luck. But that said, I get told a lot of time, like I online, man, I've been canceled so many times on Twitter. I've been canceled by the right. I've been canceled by liberals. I've been canceled by the left. And I just sit around like this because I don't care, because I just don't care.
Yeah.
Like, because I know what I stand for and I know what I believe. And just because somebody else wants to say what they think it is that I'm for or against or whatever, I don't have to respond to any of those fucking idiots. Like, as far as I'm concerned, it's like, I'll try to explain it to people. And at the point that they decide that they don't want to hear it, I'm done, you know, and I'm just not going to like, but I've been canceled over the Trump Biden COVID thing. So that was the right canceling me. And then the right canceled me again over advising Antifa how to make spike strips to stop big trucks. You know, via Twitter, which I just thought was funny.
Yeah.
But it's like, and then everybody freaked out and all this stuff. And then I've been canceled. The most recent one on the left was these morons who, like, I think that they had good intentions, but what happened was, is one of my followers, a mutual actually on Twitter, that we followed each other. We interacted a fair amount. He was one of those hardcore vegans that, like, you know, those super hardcore vegans that, like, they
talking to one.
Oh, so you are one.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm not hardcore pushing it on anybody else.
Well, no, because
I'm an obnoxious vegan of sorts, but
no, all vegans are obnoxious. So yeah, that's fine. We get it.
I'm an Aries vegan.
But the ones that think that, like, animal rights should be equal to human rights across the board, and you know, whatever. And like, I'm for animal rights too, but I don't think a puppy dying is the same as a baby dying. I just don't, right? You know, it's awful in both cases, but one I think is a lot worse, you know. But where I'm going with this is that this guy was one of those vegans who believed that, like, livestock is equivalent to murder, you know, slaughtering pigs and stuff. And so when there is this, I forget his name now, but there was a black man who was being executed, and Trump could have put a stay of execution, but he didn't.
Yeah.
You know, by the prison, and it was a few months ago, and they you know, my mutual follower person said, like, oh, sure, you guys are all upset about this, but not this. And it was like a picture of a pigs in a hauler, you know, going to get slaughtered or whatever. And so people are tagging me going, hey, you follow this guy, you know, whatever. And I go in there and I'm like, I think that was a really stupid thing to say. And I told him so. I said that was a really stupid thing and insensitive thing to say when people are talking about the racial disparities and prison sentences and all this stuff, all of which are very true and real and very easily founded in the data and everything else. And to come in and try and grandstand on top of somebody like that, I think was really poor taste. And I didn't agree even in principle on what he said, you know, like, and so I was upset at him, but at the same time, they were calling him racist because they believed that he was comparing a black man to an animal, which is a normal thing that racists do. But I was like, no, he's elevating pigs to human status. He's not lowering anybody to pig status, right? That you have to understand the vegan, right? You have to understand how vegans view the world, and it's not that it's right or wrong, but the way that they view the world is that you know, there's no difference between killing this thing or that thing, right? So
you got it from both ends.
Yeah. And man, they're telling me I'm a piece of shit and I'm a racist and all this stuff. And I'm just like, you guys are morons. Like, actually talk to a vegan, just talk to one. They'll tell you. Right. But I feel like a lot of them had never met a vegan or something, like one of those hardcore vegans like that. And I'm just like, I can't help you, man. Like, I can't help you. And so everybody's all mad at me and they're canceling me. They're posting all kinds of shit about me. And I'm just like, yeah, all right. Like,
yeah, I only give a really hard time to, like, green activists who, like, I'm a green activist. I'm like, well, if you're a green activist, you better be a vegan, because, like, if that's your number one issue and you're hardcore, you better get your ass to being vegan.
Well, like,
but
let me tell you something about me. So this is how complex I think about things. I would like to be a vegan in principle. Okay. In principle, like when I was like 7 years old, I've told this story before, but when I was like 7 years old, my mom picked me up at daycare during the winter, and it was dark outside. It was like 5 o'clock, but it was already dark, you know. And I was walking out the sidewalk. I stepped on a snail, which I could obviously tell when I stepped on it, and I cried all the way home about killing the snail. I felt so awful that I killed this thing. I don't like killing anything, and I'm still exactly the same way about that stuff. Although I have killed things now, it's, you know, it's still a very somber thing, no matter the size of the thing, you know. Like I used to shoot rats off of our back wall because they would be eating our bird seed. So I had an air rifle and I would just shoot rats, and I still felt bad every time, and they're rats. But every single time I was like, oh, God damn it. Like, you know, I just felt like kind of bad about it. So like, that's who I am as a person. And I think that there's a lot, like, if you look at things, you know, in terms of livestock and things like that, there are ways that we could be farming and everything else that would be entirely painless, you know, when at the end of their lives, and would give them actual solid, real good lives while they're alive, and they can, you know, free range and you know, be able to be cows or pigs or whatever out in fields like they want to be, you know, and have a life. I think those are things that we could do. We don't do it because there's not money in it doing it like that. You know, myself, I would like to hunt for all my food as much as I possibly could, as far as
you want to do it Joe Rogan style.
Sort of, yeah. And he was actually a big inspiration in many ways on that, because I had never liked the idea of killing something myself, even though I hypocritically did eat meat, right? I never had to kill it, so I always felt a little superior, you know, like, oh, I didn't have to kill it, it was going to be dead anyway. Like, you know, there's like that game you can play in your own head about that shit. And but when it comes, you know, Joe Rogan, the thing that he taught me is, you know, one time I was listening to shows, he just said, like, do you know how animals in the wild die? It's like, it's
cold, freezing, and
or hunted or eaten alive by wolves or bears. Like, it's horrific, right? It's a horrific death. And that's true. Most of the time it's a horrific death when they die. And I think that if you hunted and you did it the way that nature wants you to, which is you go after the weak and the slow and the small, you know, type of animals instead of the big ones, I think that you could do it. And I think it could be even a morally okay thing to do. The problem is all the hunters that do like the trophy hunting, and so they want to bag the biggest buck with the biggest rack on his head. And it's like, dude, you're taking the best genes out of the gene pool for those animals, you moron. You know, like that, like outside of the immorality of choosing animals based on, you know, wanting to hang their head on your wall, but the fact that, like, you're actually harming that population, you know. And so anyway, I know you're very unlikely to agree with me on this stuff, but I do want you to understand. But I do want you to understand that it's something that I think about.
The audience understands, I think, what you say. That's most important to them. And I'm not going to talk about my beliefs right now. I'm here to highlight.
I agree.
So don't get me wrong. That. When we get off the phone and I give you a call, I'm going to give you a fucking earful. But don't worry about it.
That's fine. I deserve it.
You knock on the door, right? And I'm a politician running for Congress. What party? You say independent. Guy goes, oh. Well, I voted for Donald Trump in the last election.
Yeah.
What do you think the best thing Donald Trump did?
He did. He gave us the first significant criminal justice reform in decades, undoing many of Joe Biden's actual policies that he put into the crime bill in 1994. So, you know, it lessened prison sentences for a lot of nonviolent crimes, and you know, did a lot. You know, that was one of the ones that Kim
First
Kardashian.
Step back.
Yeah, that's right. Kim Kardashian was a big pusher of that. He did that, and he didn't get us in any more wars. He's the first president in 3 tries that hasn't done that. So, I would say that those are 2 good things.
What do you think he's done wrong?
Oh my God!
Give me 2 things. Top 2.
I mean, I think most of what he's done wrong, to be honest with you, is that he's just an idiot, and he's a narcissist. And so he only really cares if people like him, and, you know, he wants approval from people. And I think that's actually pretty common among politicians. I think most politicians, that's where they land. I've met a lot of politicians since I became one. And I think they're all narcissists like that. But I think Trump has a couple of steps on him. for the most part. And so I'm not saying that he's unique as a narcissist or anything like that, but he's at a level that's pretty unique, I think, for his narcissism.
Mr. Cox, here's that answer. Ready?
Yeah.
Well, he didn't pardon Julian Assange, and that was really, really wrong.
Dude, it is.
That would be my answer.
But yeah, of course. But that's among many other things. Like
that's one of the worst.
Yeah, it is.
Freedom of press. That's like people talking against the government. They're saying it doesn't make a difference who you are. You open your mouth,
I know,
people shut you up, and this. You're against the whistleblower guy, and that's why I thought it would be an easy answer for you.
Yeah, no, that's true too. But like, honestly, I never really held out much hope that he would do it. So I wasn't really thinking about, like, when you asked the question,
I hoped.
wasn't really thinking about.
I was a sucker.
Yeah, well, I mean, we all want to hope to some extent, but like another Carlin quote, a George Carlin quote is, he said, underneath every cynic is a disappointed idealist, and I'm a disappointed idealist for sure, and that's why I come across so cynical a lot of the times. But I'm also right. Like, that's the craziest part, is cynicism. Try to be as cynical about our system as you possibly can manage, and you'll probably start predicting all kinds of shit correct. You'll get it right all the time. Like, just be cynical, because that's where we are. That's actually reality. But
what if that Trump supporter asked you, should we build a wall, Mr. Cox? Should we build a wall?
No, but here's
you don't believe in security?
I think that the only difference between a fortress and a prison is the direction the guards point their rifles. I don't want anything on the border keeping me from leaving, just like I don't want anything on the border keeping people from coming in. The way that our government's going and everything else, I don't trust our government with any of those sorts of things, as far as any of those powers. They want to fly drones over the border with, like, being able to see through trailers on the highway and whatever, to see who's inside, with like thermal imaging and all this sort of shit. And I'm just like, man, that's a bad idea. Like, all that stuff's a bad idea. Giving the government, and I think conservatives used to understand this, and I don't know what happened, because conservatives, even back when I was one, they've always talked about small government and, smaller, less intrusive government, but somehow, some way, they lost all that shit. They love big government now. They just want it they just want it to be prisons and cops and military fighting all over the world, instead of but they still love big government. And so, but they used to understand intrinsically, I think conservatives did, the danger in giving government power like that. Even if it's not used against you, it will be at eventually some point, and but
Democrats, so I'm not on a door. It's a Democrat. And somebody's like, I voted for Biden because I didn't like Trump and stuff. What would be your most concerning area when it comes to Joe Biden?
He's exactly the same as Trump. He just tweets less, and he's more senile, I think.
What about policy wise?
In terms of policies, he's basically the same as Trump, if you really look at it. I mean, we're talking degrees of difference off of the same exact point, right? Like the new COVID relief bill, I just tweeted this out, but the new COVID relief bill has like all kinds of giveaways to health insurance companies and everything else. So it's going to strengthen health insurance companies against us. He bombed Syria, right? He bombed Syria.
36 days into it.
Yeah, 36 days. I mean, he beat Trump by like 50 days or something. But like, also me, I'm just, as an aside, because of Syria, I have the tweets, I have the receipts, but I predicted the Duma attack. I predicted it 4 days before it happened, the Duma gas attack in 2018. Yeah. I predicted it 4 days ahead of time. Yeah.
It's air quotes, because it was really a gas attack.
Yeah, but I predicted that it was not only that it would happen, like that there would be a news story about it or whatever, and I also predicted that it wouldn't be true 4 days before it happened. So that's, again, if you just hold your cynicism and keep your cynicism and say, like, I'm just going to run with how cynical this is. That's what I did, because what I saw a news item that said Donald Trump wants to pull all troops out of Syria. And I'm like, oh, and I retweeted that news item. And I was like, if there's a gas attack in the next few days, don't believe it, because the last thing Assad wants is to keep us around. And the only thing that'll keep us around is if he gasses his people again. right?
Yeah.
So like it's whatever, and then 4 days later it happened.
Yeah.
So you know, I want you to understand also, I guess, because I am a candidate and I'm asking people to trust me, which is terrible to do, but it's, you know, I have to. I'm asking people to trust me. I want them to see that I have good judgment, that I understand the ins and outs of how this works, you know, and that I'm on your side. I want it to stop. I believe that there is a moral imperative. Every time a bomb kills any innocent person, and I mean really innocent, not just somebody who our government determines to be innocent, but actually an innocent person in some other country somewhere. Every single person who dies because they can't afford their health insurance, because they have a pain in their back and they're like, well, I've got $5,000 deductible on my insurance, so you know, I'll just wait, see if it goes away and whatever. And then by the next year, when they finally can't stand anymore and they go to the doctor and find out what this pain is, it's stage 4 cancer. Now they have like stage 4 kidney cancer, and then they die. Right. Yeah. And if like they had insurance that was just easy to use, that they could just go and actually just get the help, they'd be alive. Yeah. You know, that's the 68,000 Americans a year. That's stuff like that. And every time one of those people die, every time we kill somebody overseas, I believe that takes some of our essential humanity away from us. I think that we are collectively losing our essential humanity. And I know it's a little bit bigger picture than politics, but I really, really believe that we're all taking a toll on all of us. The way that our government behaves and the way that our society is structured, I think it's taking a toll on all of us, and we have to change it. We have to, because if we don't, this is over soon. Like this whole thing, I think this country is not long for this world if we don't start repairing things right now.
It seems too that the elites have us so polarized and at each other's throats that they want us to have some sort of civil war against each other. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And I'm not talking about, you know, color, creed, or religion. I'm talking about political ideology. It's just like, you don't even know who, you know, is opposed. And that's why I love independent-minded thinking people like yourself. And I think what you're doing is awesome. And I'm rooting for you. And
I'm also wholly and completely pro-gun because of the fact that I believe that we need to have that check against our own government. I think that is a necessary thing, and that we could solve the gun deaths, the gun homicides, the suicides, both. We can solve those things through actually structuring our society properly, you know, through proper social safety nets to prevent people from losing everything and the stresses that come along with the fear of that. The psycho, you know, having universal healthcare that would allow people to see psychiatrists, things like that. Yeah. There's a lot of things and socioeconomic equality is as well that causes most of the inner city crime and all this other stuff. I think that if we addressed our social ills in our country, the guns wouldn't be a problem. I think in a truly fair and just society, you could have an AR-15 loaded on every corner, and the only people that would ever get shot would be by accident. Yeah, that's what I think. But
I always say that same thing. What's behind the reasonings for the guns being pulled, the mental health issues, the economic stress, all that shit just piles on into what's going out there on the streets, man. So
that's right. Yeah. So that's one thing I talk to conservatives about, and they tend to see, but you know, not in the right way, I don't think, but at least they understand it. Well, because
you could be pro-gun and then Medicare for all. They'll be like, I'm for this, but I'm not for that. And
they always talk about, like, you know, from my cold dead hands, that Charlton Heston thing.
Yeah, I know.
From my cold dead hands. And I'm like, yeah, but so it seems like they only care about the Second Amendment to enforce the Second Amendment. Like, it seems like that's as far as they've gone with it. Because if they really stood by, like, if they really believed as I do, if a whole swath of the country believed as I do, that being armed is a check against the government, and that we need to use that check on occasion, you know, not necessarily hurting anybody, but making sure that they see that we have the spirit of resistance against what they want to do. Right. Yeah. I think that they would have all done that. They would have freaked out in 2001 after the Patriot Act got passed and it violated 7 of the 10 amendments of the Bill of Rights. But they all just sat around with their thumbs up their asses like, well, I guess it's what we have to do because the terrorists are going to kill us all. And it's just like, shit, man. Like, I'm so disappointed because it's like they talk
used
all this big game.
Around that time, they used that certain language, either with us or the terrorists. And
yeah.
now they're like, you're either with us or you're with the mob. It's they use the same playbook.
It's the same shit. But like, so I don't think that they necessarily understand the whole picture, but at least they understand the gun part and they know that I'm on their side on that end. Like nobody's going to give up their guns, nor should they be asked to in a society where so much is so wrong and it's causing so much strife and violence around our society. I mean, I have guns because I want to protect my family, and people can talk to me about how that's not realistic or whatever, because they manipulate data. Says like if you have a gun in your home, you're more likely to be shot with it. Yeah, no shit, because domestic violence is the number one way of getting killed. That's the number one murder or whatever, so of course, having a gun in your home means that one of the two people in a domestic violence thing ends up getting shot. But that's not like the ideal scenario, right? Like I know that my wife's never going to shoot me and I'm never going to shoot her. Like we're good. We got it covered. So that's not an actual danger at my house is my point.
Yeah. Yeah. It'd be kind of hard to live in Orange County, run in Orange County, and not be for the Second Amendment. You know what I'm saying? It's Orange County.
I think that would be true. I think that's true, but that's not why I believe what I believe. You know what I mean?
No, like, I know.
Like I think that there are smart positions to take politically, and I don't take many of them.
Yeah.
Like
you don't take the safe ones.
No, I mean, it's just what matters is truth and honesty and really understanding the problem and wanting to fix it at its root, to actually root it out and fix it, rather than just putting band-aids over shit all the time.
Absolutely.
So that we could put a feather in our hat and be like, oh, see what we did. Hey, like in 1994, we passed this assault weapons ban. And so at the time, I think it was like 1.5% of all gun deaths in any given year were done with weapons that could be called assault weapons, like under the law that they've created. It was like 1.5%. And then that was it. Like 10 years later, the ban flipped. And so it wasn't a thing anymore. And it never really kind of was a thing anyway, but gun crime didn't go crazy, like it didn't go up. And if you look at the FBI data, even now, they'll break down like the murder victims. It says like how they were killed. And they break it down by type of gun as well. And every single year, there are fewer people killed in our country, murdered in our country with rifles of all types than are killed with no weapon whatsoever, just with hands and feet. Like more people are killed with hands and feet, strangling, beating somebody, to death, whatever.
No. I think so many of the problems out there are so driven by the socioeconomic struggles we have. Everybody's at each other's throats because they're so poor, living paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
There's no proper medical care for them too as well. They can't get their mental health treatment. I agree. You're not looking at the Band-Aid at the top. You're looking at the actual root down below.
Yeah. And it's so frustrating to like, for me, it's not like I came on this stuff, most of this stuff myself. Some of it I did, but like, but to understand what's actually at the root of what causes all of the strife and the anger and the stress and all this other stuff, and our society, like capitalism. And I'm not anti-capitalist. I'm not anti-socialist. I think that there are different answers for different things, mm-hmm. But that said, a purely capitalist system strives and thrives off of keeping everybody almost destitute.
Yeah.
Because that is the best way to control everybody. Everybody's under control if you have no money.
Yeah.
And we have to, one thing that I always didn't like about Bernie is he would always talk about wanting to tax the rich and make them pay their fair share. I don't give a shit if it's their fair share. I don't care. We need to tax the rich because if we don't, they control our government. They control our actual representative government. They control everything that Congress and the White House does. So if we don't reduce their wealth to the point that they can no longer control our government, we will never control our government ourselves, you know? So that's why we have to tax the shit out of wealthy people. It's not a jealousy thing. It's a matter of fixing our actual democracy so that we can have a country that functions. You know, they are preventing us from having a functional democracy just by having that money. So, you know, it's not jealousy. It's not trying to pay anybody's fair share. It's a matter of like, we got to fix this thing, you know?
Yeah. Well, that's Stephen Cox for you, ladies and gentlemen. He's not a vegan. He likes the Second Amendment, but he's got some great progressive views. He's all over the place because he's an independent-minded thinker running as an independent. Tell us where we can find you, Steve.
One thing I need to say is that,
go ahead, Bubba.
Yeah. And this will get into where you can find me, but you know, my website's behind me. It's voteforcox.com. On there, you'll have a donation link. I need you guys to donate money. Man, I fucking hate asking people for their money because especially right now, everybody's so tight, but at any time, like, you know, it's your money. I don't have any right to it, but I'm asking you, please, like you have to, if you can afford to throw any money at this campaign, you have to do it because we got to raise about $10,000 before we can start paying for all the services that I'm going to need to be able to raise more, you know, like that's what I've got to raise first. And, you know, I almost thought I had this covered. I wanted to point this out because I thought I had this actually handled because I had signed a contract with an organization called the Grassroots Analytics. I signed a contract with them as a candidate to where they have access to all this left-wing vote or donor data. So a lot of nonprofits and whatever, they have over 20 million, like 25 million names and addresses and phone numbers and email addresses for people who've donated to left-wing causes. And I don't necessarily identify as left-wing per se. I do identify as a left libertarian. I think that's
how I call myself, a leftist libertarian.
Yeah, left libertarian. So that's where I sit. But you know, I want universal health care. I want all these things because I think that's the right answer. It's not a matter of being an ideological thing about like, you know, it should be this way. I think that that's actually the right answer. So, you know, but this organization, we had signed a contract. It was all good to go. That was last Thursday. So like a week from when we're taping this. And then over the weekend, I got in an argument on Twitter because I pointed out on John Ossoff's post, one of John Ossoff's posts, I said, where's our $2,000? Because I have these videos that I post all the time that shows him saying like, if you know, I win and
Warnock wins,
wins, we're going to give you $2,000 next week. We're going to get you $2,000 next week and all this sort of stuff. And we still ain't got it. And now they're talking about $1,400, right? And
6 weeks later.
And they're narrowing down who even gets it by like a lot. You know, it's going to cut like 16 to 20 million people out of even getting the money. You know, all that stuff aside, like the thing was I got in an argument about that because I was posting whatever, and like all these liberals jumped on me, all these bot accounts and shit. And I was just telling them to fuck themselves and like blocking them because I just don't care. I'm just like, I don't care. You know, go away. I don't care. Well, apparently, although they wouldn't be specific, that's the only thing that happened between Thursday and last Tuesday. Last Tuesday was supposed to be the time when I was onboarded to their organization where they would start, you know, getting me the data, the names and phone numbers of people I needed to talk to try and run this campaign and try and get enough money so that we could do it. And it was going to be fantastic. It was the one thing that could have easily made or broke the campaign, or at least easily made the campaign work. And then I got an email 45 minutes before our meeting saying that they were canceling the meeting. And then I got a follow-up email saying that I was like, you know, because of my unprofessional behavior on social media. Please. And I'm like, yeah. And so here's the background though. In 2019, I had a campaign person who worked on my campaign who went to them and asked them about, you know, helping the campaign. And they said they didn't work with anybody who wasn't a Democrat or at least would caucus with the Democrats. And this person left it at that. And it was late in the process anyway, so I wasn't really that worried about it. But then this time I contacted them and I said, probably I would end up in the progressive caucus because a lot of the same shared ideals as far as things that need to get done. But not that I consider myself a progressive because I don't, but you know, I'm left of all the progressives probably on the political compass, but and south. but so anyway, they basically called me unprofessional, and then I replied back to him a pretty long reply, 2 different replies actually, because I stewed and then like hit him as the second one, both very professional and kind, and whatever. Nothing, I didn't say what I wanted to say, but they never replied to those emails at all, as far as wanting to help me understand what happened or allow me an opportunity to defend myself. They just said in that first email that they're terminating the contract, which I'm pretty sure they couldn't really do from the contract, but it's not like I can actually just sue them or whatever. Like I wouldn't win that suit before this election's over. You know what I mean? Like it's pointless, even if I wanted to do it. But anyway, they're a piece of shit organization because all they care about is Democrats. That's the bottom line. And so when they talk about this grassroots analytics, when they talk about wanting to help bring about universal health care or address climate change or any of this other stuff, they're full of shit, because they should know by now that the Democrats don't actually want to do those things, that they're just things they talk about. And the fact that they would boot me out of that thing for talking shit about Democrats who deserve it,
or establishment Democrats
who were on video lying to the public, and I could post the videos and everything else, and that they would sever ties over that shit, means that they are every bit at fault for what we get after this. Because in 2024, it's probably going to be somebody like that Marjorie Taylor Greene or some shit like that who's going to end up winning the presidency, because the Democrats are so feckless and awful and are trying to serve 2 masters. They're trying to serve the corporate side like the Republicans do, and they're also trying to act like they're our friends, and they're not. They're not our friends. None of them.
Where can we find you for help?
So I just wanted to tell you that that organization sucks.
Yeah, we know.
Grassroots LLC.
Gotcha.
I'm a petty person.
We don't have to worry about these assholes in these groups. Where can the people send you money?
Vote for
That's the best thing.
Voteforcox.com is being rebuilt now. I was waiting for some more money coming in. I was going to pay somebody to do it, but now it looks like I got to build it myself. So it changes the process. But voteforcox.com, you could reach me there, and then there's on there's a link that talks about helping the campaign, and it gives you the ability to email the campaign and volunteer, or the ability to go to my crowd pack page, which is where you could donate and stuff. And they just now fixed it. For a while it wasn't working, but now you can actually just do a monthly donation. And that's what I would really like people to do, because I know time's tough. I like, if you can set up $5 or $10 a month or $1 a month, I don't really care. If I could get 10,000 people to donate $1 a month, $1 a month each, we're good. We got it. We have enough money. You know what I mean?
Well, we get 5,000 to vote to do $2 a month.
Well, yeah, that's my point though, right? It doesn't take a lot. It doesn't take a lot. And for most of us, even who aren't doing that great financially, $2 or $3 a month or whatever isn't going to break you. You probably aren't going to notice, because it's, you got bigger fish to fry. Yeah. So I'm just saying, like, if you guys can help, that's the way I'd like you to do it. If you can't just give a bunch of money up front, but we have to raise money, and it sucks. And I know
we understand the game.
We really, really do have to raise it. And then eventually, hopefully, we'll be able to actually get the money out and make it so that we don't have to keep asking people for money like this. Like it's GoFundMe for medical care and all this other shit.
I hear you.
There's so much stuff that people have to pay for. But so understand that I feel bad about that. But at the same time, we have to win. We have to win this thing, because I want to prove to the country, we have to prove, I believe, in one race somewhere, that independents aren't a wasted vote, that we can actually win. We can actually win. And once one wins, I think one of us somewhere wins an election, you can use that to tell everybody else, see, look, it's not a wasted vote. Independents actually can win. Look, if you get that dam broken and we can actually change our government, I think we can do it. But we have to be able to, step up and do the hard shit. And it sucks, but we have to do it. So, voteforcox.com. My Twitter is real Steve Cox. I'm not that nice. So if you come at me and I feel like you're attacking me somehow, I'm probably going to block you or some stupid shit, because it's like, I don't have time for it. I want to deal with my family and like have a good time. And I want to talk about what I want to do and whatever. And I don't, usually I'll try to argue with somebody, but as soon as they make it clear that they don't want to actually like have a discussion or whatever, I'm done, but I'm not that nice. But I want to be your asshole in Congress. That's the point, is I want to be an asshole, like, because that's kind of naturally, I'm a kind, sweet guy. guy, but I don't take shit from people. And I want to be able to go to Congress and be your asshole. Like I want to be the guy that goes in there and stands up against all these people, stands up and says, look, no, I'm not voting for your stupid, renaming this post office, or you're, making the official nut of whatever. Like, who gives a shit? Like, we have people who need help, and I'm going to try and shame them and make them look like the assholes they are from day one through until I get kicked out. And I hope, my goal is that by the end of my first term, I would hope that both parties spend so much money trying to unseat me in my district that it's insane. And then I hope I still win because I do a good job. And I want them to see that, like, this is what's, they caused me. They're the reason why I showed up, is because they suck at their jobs and they do it on purpose.
You got it.
And we need to get it fixed. So Real Steve Cox on Twitter, Instagram, and on Facebook. It's facebook.com/Real Steve Cox. And that's it. But thank you for having me on.
Steve Cox for you, ladies and gentlemen, running for Congress, trying to be your asshole. Thank you so much. Go out, help and support him. We need more independence in Congress. Pasta Jardula, Steve Cox. Convo out.